How the US just triggered its own AI and dollar collapse. Alright guys, we've officially crossed the point of no return. The US and China are no longer competing, they're decoupling. The ties that once connected the two largest economies on Earth are being torn apart, strand by strand. And make no mistake, this separation is not temporary, it's accelerating. And it's not just trade, it's technology, finance, and even ideology. But if we look beneath the headlines and political noise, something deeper is happening, something that could define the next 50 years. Because beneath all the diplomatic smiles and trade truces, Beijing is done with Washington, and Washington, it's done with Beijing. The real battlefield now, it's not on the ocean, not in space, it's inside Silicon. The semiconductor war, the lifeblood of modern technology. Whoever wins this war will control the future of artificial intelligence and by extension, the global economy, military dominance, and even the digital mind of humanity itself. That's why the stakes are astronomical. The United States is fueling its AI gamble with an unprecedented mountain of debt. Over $25 billion in debt is now tied directly to data centers, the fortresses of the AI era. But that's not all. Wall Street has entered the game, turning this into another speculative frenzy. Nearly $50 billion worth of data center mortgage-backed securities are floating around. Yes, bonds backed by buildings stuffed with servers and AI chips. Sound familiar? It should. It's the same pattern that led to the 2008 crash. If this AI bubble pops, and many insiders believe it will, it won't just be Nvidia's stock taking a hit, it'll be a domino collapse of investors, banks, and entire funds tied to this new asset class, and if the dominoes fall, liquidity will freeze, credit will vanish. We'll relive 2008, only this time, the bubble isn't real estate, it's artificial intelligence. Now China knows this. In fact, they're counting on it. Beijing sees the writing on the wall and realizes they might not need to outcompete America, they just need to outlast it. Trump's latest tariffs have only made things worse. He's gambling both high-end and restricted Nvidia chips in a last-ditch effort to keep US dominance alive. Even Nvidia's own CEO, Jensen Huang, can't hide his fear. He recently admitted, then awkwardly walked back his statement, that China has caught up in AI. But the truth? He's right. Half the world's AI researchers are based in China. And more importantly, China's most advanced AI models are now open source. That means global developers can freely access and build upon Chinese AI technology, while the US keeps its best tools locked behind paywalls and export bans. The result? Beijing is flooding the world with accessible, powerful, and rapidly improving AI systems, and everyone from startups to entire countries are adopting them. Now let's rewind a bit. Nvidia once had 95% market share in China. Today, zero. A complete wipeout. Beijing shut the door and now regulators have gone one step further. New government directives require all state-funded data centers which make up the bulk of China's cloud infrastructure to replace American AI chips with domestic ones. That means no more Nvidia, no more AMD. Only Huawei and Cambricon chips are allowed. And here's the thing, China can actually afford to do this. Their engineers have found a way to bypass cutting-edge hardware limitations by clustering massive amounts of lower-end chips. It's like replacing one supercar with a fleet of fast sedans. Sure, each individual chip isn't as powerful, but together they get the job done. This method allows China to achieve the same computing power for a fraction of the cost, and in doing so they achieve two critical goals. First, every dollar that once went to US chip makers now fuels local innovation in companies like Huawei and Cambricon. Second, China's AI ecosystem gains independence and momentum, producing new models, new software, and new breakthroughs faster than before. And the results are already visible. By late 2025, the top 3 AI models in the world, all open source, were Chinese. They outperformed American equivalents from Google and Meta. Think about that. The world's free market tech giants are being outpaced by state-backed research from Beijing, and this has massive implications, because free, open-source AI means the rest of the world, Africa, South America, the Middle East will build their digital infrastructure on Chinese foundations, and once that happens, there's no going back. But the semiconductor war is no longer just about chips, it's becoming an energy war. And this is where the US faces an existential disadvantage. Electricity costs in America are 30–40% higher than in China, and China's government is subsidizing its energy-intensive industries. ensuring its AI and chip sectors can scale cheaply and quickly. In short, China's AI power grid is stronger, cheaper, and growing faster. As of now, China already holds 66% of the world's total wind and solar capacity, that's around 340 gigawatts, and by the 2030s, their solar power generation alone could exceed the entire electricity demand of the US. If that happens, the AI war is effectively over. You can't win an energy arms race against a country that's already powered for the next century. The US is racing ahead, gambling that some breakthrough in artificial general intelligence AGI, or Skynet, as some call it, will reset the playing field. But if that miracle doesn't come soon, Washington will be left holding a trillion-dollar AI bubble ready to burst. Meanwhile, China's playing the long game, building infrastructure, hoarding energy, and letting the US burn through debt. And that brings us to the next phase of this decoupling, the de-dollarization wave. China and Russia are leading the charge, and the numbers don't lie. According to Russia's finance ministry, over 99% of transactions between Moscow and Beijing are now done in their own currencies, the yuan and the ruble, not the dollar, not even the euro. This isn't just politics, it's a structural shift, a rejection of Western-controlled payment systems like SWIFT, and the more they trade directly, the less demand there is for US dollars or treasury bonds. Which means the global appetite for American debt, already drowning at $38 trillion, will keep shrinking. Despite sanctions and war, both the Russian and Chinese economies are growing. China's expected to grow over 4% in 2026. Russia, around 1.5% annually, even under Western restrictions. Their trade volume together is nearing $900 billion, and it's almost entirely de-dollarized. That's nearly $1 trillion in trade now, completely outside the Western system. And every transaction like that weakens the dollar's global dominance. But Washington isn't helping its own cause. Anybody that wants to be in BRICS, that's fine. But we're going to put tariffs on your nation. In other words, America is punishing countries for diversifying away from the dollar, but in doing so, it's scaring even more nations into finding alternatives. Because if the US can weaponize trade today, what's stopping it from freezing your assets tomorrow? That's why global central banks are quietly shifting their reserves. For the first time in history, gold has overtaken US Treasuries as the top reserve asset. There's now $4.7 trillion in gold held by central banks compared to $3.9 trillion in US bonds. And the message is crystal clear. The world no longer trusts the dollar as the safest bet. Gold prices are soaring because more countries are buying, not selling. It's simple supply and demand, and it signals the beginning of the end for dollar hegemony. Meanwhile, Chinese investors are doing the same. They see the writing on the wall. Real estate is collapsing, bond yields are under 2%, and the yuan is volatile, so they're pouring money into gold ETFs and domestic equities tied to tech and energy. Every ounce of gold purchased in Shanghai is another vote against the dollar. Every data center built in Shenzhen with local chips is another step away from US control. And every renewable power station in Inner Mongolia or Xinjiang strengthens China's long-term strategic advantage. Trade decoupling is now irreversible. In October alone, Chinese exports to the US plunged by 25%, one of the steepest drops in decades. That's not a blip, that's a structural collapse in trade relations. And as Beijing redirects exports toward Asia, the Middle East, and Europe, more and more of that trade will happen outside the dollar. So while Washington celebrates tariffs and sanctions as victories, it's actually accelerating the fall of its own currency system. And here's the tragic irony. America's aggressive sanctions and tariffs meant to preserve dominance are doing the exact opposite. They're forcing China and Russia to build a world that doesn't need the dollar, US tech, or US approval. It's the law of unintended consequences on a global scale, so here we are. The United States is gambling everything on debt-fueled AI dominance, while China quietly builds a parallel system powered by its own chips, its own currency, and its own energy. If the AI bubble bursts, it won't just take down Nvidia or Wall Street. It could take down the credibility of the entire US economic system, and if that happens, we won't just be talking about a chip war. We'll be witnessing the beginning of a civilizational reset. So, what do you think? Can China outlast the US in this semiconductor and AI war? Can Washington actually reverse the de-dollarization wave that's now sweeping across the globe? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you made it this far, thank you for watching. Stay sharp, stay informed, and don't forget to smash that like button Subscribe for more deep dive geopolitical analysis and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episode, because trust me, the next chapter of the story is going to be even wilder.